She said that American soccer fans, most of them aren't smart. They don't know the game. They don't understand.
Gio.
That guy gazpacho.
Sports can take a lame gorilla, okay?
Advice, did you know that Arsenal died?
He's got me buzzing.
Up the Toffees. It's hard to up them anyway.
Boys, let's move to a packed U.S. men's national team corner here. We'll move in with Gio Reyna. Who else would we be talking about other than Gio Reyna, as he scored a banger this weekend in a second consecutive start for Borussia Dortmund, Mike? Julian Brandt's out with a hamstring, and Mike, he has taken full advantage of that spot being open with a start in the Champions League versus Barcelona and a second straight start here, getting a goal in this one. Massive for him. Otherwhere in the midfield for the U.S., McKennie scored a scissor kick in the Champions League from a Weah assist, American to American, for the first time in the Champions League, a similar goal to his 2020 goal against Barcelona. The U.S. will be playing against Japan, is the most recent report, in a pre-World Cup match. That is going to be next autumn. So getting some different opponents. No more Panama and Jamaica every single international window, although we will be playing Costa Rica again this window. But, we won't talk about that one. And then Balogun announced today that he was having surgery on that shoulder, came back from that injury, got worse, surgery, and he's out for 4 months.
Shout out
that is just
medical team.
Brutal.
Malpractice.
Jesus Christ. That is awful. 4 months for his shoulder surgery there. Well, let's end on a positive with the U.S. men's national team corner before we get into our new seg. Jedi Robinson, 2 assists versus Liverpool. We talked about it a little bit. He is third in the league in assists as a left back. Absurd. He's been the left back that all the top teams are wanting. United, Liverpool. I don't know. That's really the only two that I've seen that much. Everton. He was an Everton Academy grad.
Come home.
Where should he go, Nick? Because it seems to be that he's getting maybe a little too big for Fulham. He's becoming the best player on the pitch most time they're out. He's ready for that big move, it looks like. Where should he go? Where's best for his career?
Best for his career is to stay at Fulham. I think that a big money move to a really big side would come with a lot of pressure. I'm not sure. Why ruin a good thing, in my opinion? Why risk getting buried behind competition, especially from USMNT perspective? If I had to pick a team, he's obviously always fit the Liverpool perspective. Obviously, Andy Robertson's not the player he used to be, but I don't know. This feels like, why are we messing with a good thing? Why not become the captain at Fulham and just become a club legend and keep performing at the level he is, keep being a great player for the USMNT? I wouldn't mess with a good thing if I was Jedi.
You don't think he has any type of progression or increase in what he can do if he goes to a top level side and continues to train?
I don't think so. What is he going to get better at? Like, he's at a good side. He's in the Premier League. He's making buttloads of cash. Like, I think at this point, he'd be
maybe making a buttload more of cash if he went anywhere else other than Fulham. I don't think they're paying quite as handsomely as Man U or
Liverpool. It's a sin, brother. Also, in the Premier League these days, you never know. Who knows?
That is true. All of a sudden, the Saudi oil prince falls in love with Fulham, and you're
seriously. I don't know. I like him. I like him with Fulham. He's been there forever. I think at this point, he probably has an attachment to the club. I wouldn't mess with a good thing.
All right, Mike, are you in the same space, or you wanted to see him in some potentially greener pastures?
He's got to come to MLS. That's the only option, I think.
Can you imagine how many goals Gio would have scored in MLS?
Imagine.
That would have been absurd.
I think Liverpool would be a fine move. I think you can fit that system where Trent's the more creative guy and he's more of a traditional fullback, can kind of bomb up the wing. I think he is kind of tapped out skill-wise. I don't see him progressing a whole lot more. He's very, very good, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if he adds any more elements to his game. Fulham, I think I ride with Nick. I think that's a good shout. Become a club legend is the way to go.
All right. No Ruben
Fulham's
Amorim.
like, I think Fulham, if you say in the next year,
fuck that, dude.
if you said at the end of this year they finish like top 8 and then next year they finish top 6, like I could believe that for Fulham.
Yeah, I mean, they've looked very good this season. And
Seriously.
Jedi Robinson being a big part of that, as now, as you said, their captain. So certainly somebody that could stay there. And obviously, as long as they're staying in the Premier League with Fulham, looking all right. Boys, let's move into, speaking of important players for Fulham, important players for the U.S. men's national team. We have ranked our top 3 most important players for the U.S. men's national team, not named Christian Pulisic. Of course, he would just be number 1 for everybody. We're going to start with number 3. Everybody's number 3. I have gone with Gio Reyna. I think he creates a massive difference for our team in terms of...
Read the sheet.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody put in Shaq Moore there. That's an interesting shout. But Gio Reyna, I think what he adds to the midfield in the attack is absolutely massive. You'll see from the other 2 I put in why I didn't say him as number 1, but you could certainly make an argument. But what an important player. Mike, who did you put as your 3rd most important player behind
Big Weston McKennie. I think the U.S. looks so much better when he's at his best. He's on his best day. He's a top 2 player for the United States. Long-standing player. When he shows up in big games, we perform so well. We saw that against England in the World Cup for sure. He can contribute goals. His work rate is crazy. He puts in defensive tackles. And I think he is crucial to the U.S. having success going forward.
Yeah, I think under this Pochettino system too, just based off what we've seen of him getting into the attack and using his work rate, it's pretty catered towards him and showing out. Nick, what did you choose as your 3rd most important?
Yeah, I thought about West and some other midfielders there. You know, I'm a big Eunice guy. Obviously, I'm sure Tyler Adams will be mentioned on this list somewhere, but there's just so much depth there. It feels like that. I don't know if I can call them the most important. Let me tell you somewhere we don't have depth, and that's center back, because we don't even really have a true number 1 center back, or even a starting pair that you can feel pretty decent about. Which means that Chris Richards has to be the 3rd most important player, not named Christian Pulisic. Listen, he is the only one with the actual talent, I think, to lock down a real starting spot there, one that you feel really confident about. He's a guy who we have seen play well before at the club level. And he's a guy who I'm a personal believer in. And I'm a big believer in building a team down the middle. That spine starts with the center back, and you have to have a guy there that you absolutely trust in all situations. I don't think he's that guy right now, if I'm being honest, but if he can get there by 2026, I think that would boost my confidence in our chances tenfold in this World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, center back is certainly a position in need, and he's the one that stands out. Mike, do you have something on that?
I mean, as a center back, I totally agree with Nick. It's so important. It's especially in Poch's system with how ball heavy both of these guys have to be. It's really an important position. We don't have distribution from goalkeeper, so that makes the position even more important. And then with how high this team is going to press, these dudes have to be on the money every single day. I think Nick's right. Chris Richards is the guy who stands out in that crop of players.
Yeah, I think that leads me into the 2nd most important player that I chose, kind of for similar reasons of our defense doesn't have a lot of depth, and certainly at right back, I don't think we have a crazy amount, and there's at least a big difference. I went with Serginho Dest as our big difference, our 2nd most important player behind Christian Pulisic. Joe Scally is a decent backup, and he's been serviceable for this past year as Dest has been out with this ACL injury. But there was a massive drop-off. I mean, I think one of the reasons why Greg Berhalter's system looks so bad once he was rehired is because he didn't have Serginho Dest, who just be such an insanely big creative attacking force for the U.S. from that right side. I mean, him and Weah were just a fun side. They were more creative, I think you could say at times, than Pulisic and Jedi, just because Dest would constantly make little dribble runs. He would break lines. I mean, when he came in for that January camp and played Mexico, he dribbled like 5 players to then set up the game-tying goal. He is just a massive difference maker and something that you just do not get from Joe Scally. It just seems like Joe Scally, even when things have been going well for him, is just maybe a little uncomfortable on the ball. And obviously, Sergiño Dest is maybe the least uncomfortable person on the ball that the American national team has ever seen. So I think getting him back is massive for just boosting this team up another level. Matt Turner may be the one man. You know what, Nick? You fucking found him. Where's Waldo did. Those two on the ball have not looked great. And Joe Scally, because he has to be on the ball more, has made quite a few mistakes and just errant passes. Mike, do you agree? Where have you gone for your second most important player behind Christian Pulisic?
I do agree with you. I think Dest is hugely important. He's a difference maker. He's a game winner on his day. And he's really just a special player. Certainly miss him. Need him back ASAP. I went across the field. I went to his counterpart, Jedi Robinson, on the left flank. I thought about Sergiño. I was only going to pick one of the fullbacks. I think Jedi just does a bit more for me. He's not as creative for sure. Not a flair guy like Sergiño, but he does so much for us. I talked about maybe he doesn't have other dimensions to his game. That might not be fair. We've seen him utilized a little bit more centrally with Poch in the last window. Needed to see it against fiercer competition before we get a verdict there. But this guy does everything. He frees up our most important player on the field. He lets Pulisic operate how he wants to, which is amazing. And at the same time, he gets in the attack, makes overlapping runs, provides assists, drags guys out of position. He's really a threat in that regard. And then with how weak our defensive pool is, he covers. He tracks back like no other. He's probably the fastest guy on the team. Super athlete, really does it all. I think he is definitely one of the most important players.
Yep. Certainly a good shout, and I may agree with that one. I'll let that be just at that for right now. Nick, who is your second most important player for the U.S. men's national team?
So like I said, when I'm building my teams, I build them out from the spine. Both Dest and Jedi, if you're saying the best players outside of Pulisic, both of them would make my list here. They're that talented. They're that good. They're that enjoyable to watch. But if we're talking about most important, I just can't give it to an outside back, even if they get more usage in Poch's system than like a Berhalter system. They're a luxury in my mind, and they always will be. And maybe that's just my own bias, which means that we're sticking with the spine. And the guy that's, well, honestly, preview guys, I just need someone to step up at the striker spot, and I'm narrowing it down to Flo or Pepe. If you want to say Pepe right now, obviously Flo, big news, obviously out injured, so let's just call it Pepe at the moment. But at the end of the day, you win games by scoring goals. And yeah, drawing games in a group stage versus a opponent that's better than you is a good thing, but to win games, to get past knockout stages games, we need to score goals, and that means someone needs to be firing up front. I think Flo has the talent. I think Pepe might fit the system a little bit better, and maybe this year is convincing me that he could have the talent. But we need someone to be popping the goals in. It can't just be Pulisic, especially as you get later in the stages of a World Cup where people are going to be keying in and game planning for you a little bit more. So I'm picking the number 9. I don't think it's a bad shout. And whether it be Flo, whether it be Pepe, whether it's Brandon Vasquez, I don't care. The striker needs to be on fire. He is the second most important outside of Christian Pulisic.
Cop out, choosing position. But I do agree.
I'll say Pepe.
We definitely need them. Yeah, I mean, he's on some type of form. Definitely need one of them to pop off here and be one of those massive players. That leads us to our most important players outside of Christian Pulisic in the U.S. men's national team. I'm going back to the well, to Mike's number 2 answer. I've gone with Jedi Robinson as my choice as the most important player behind Christian Pulisic. I think you could say the second best player, best informed player right now behind Christian Pulisic as well. I guess Pepe might be above him, but just absolutely amazing for Fulham. And really the big thing is Dest and Gio Reyna, when they're in, boost up this team a whole lot. Anthony Robinson does that, but also without him, there is a gigantic gaping hole left in our left back position because I don't know who does play there. Is it Christopher Lund, who's right now struggling in Serie B? Is it John Tolkien, who really hasn't been able to play much? I mean, Tim Weah might be honestly the best shout.
Marcus Beasley.
That's the thing is, if Jedi Robinson cannot play, this U.S. men's national team left side is fucked because you're not going to have as good of a defender. They're not going to be able to combine as well in the attack with Pulisic, which has been, I mean, just as we saw last camp, massive. The way he can combine, the way he can be tactically flexible and move inside, take those ideas and run with them and play at a high level. I mean, I just think there's such a massive gap between Jedi Robinson and anyone else that can play that position that it makes it so important. Whereas everywhere else, you at least have some decent amount of depth.
Don't you think, though, you can hide a left back, though? I mean, put someone out there and give him support. Don't tell him to go up too much. I mean, theoretically, if Jedi is injured,
that's I think what you do with Best. I think that's why I think Scally, you can hide him a bit. And that's why I put him behind Jedi's. Who the fuck are you hiding? Because they're going to be sticking out like a sore thumb. Like every other position has depth. So
you can hide one bad defender. You can't hide four, Nick. That's just called a holy wall, dude.
Hey, you don't have to defend if you're attacking all the time.
Hell yeah.
Tell that to Pep.
Gio and Malik Tillman, both in the starting 11. I believe we found to Jedi Robinson.
Malik Tillman's a lefty, right? He could play left back.
He played CDM. Mike, who have you gone with your most important player?
I have to agree with Nick that the spine is just more important at the end of the day. There was only one player I'd ever choose when he's available. That's Tyler Adams. He is our captain. He's our leader. He's a difference maker. And with how shaky, how undependable, non-reliable, just who knows who you're going to get at center back, he is the most important. He shields this team. He makes the center backs play with more confidence, and he wins the ball. When we turn over the ball, which we inevitably will, and we'll do it in really high press situations, he's going to be the guy to win it back, make a tackle, take a foul, choose somebody out, keep them positionally sound. I expect Potts to get the best out of him, for him to be one of his go-to guys, to keep the armband. And we see him make differences in every aspect of the game, whether it's a thundering long shot on the off occasion, a crucial 50-50, nicking a ball and turning it into instant attack. In all of the standout performances over the last couple of years, Tyler Adams has been involved. He's been the focal point. He's an unsung hero a lot of the time, but it doesn't take away from his importance. I don't think this team does anything without Tyler Adams. You could talk about Johnny Cardoso. You could talk about Yunus Musa playing the sixth, Tanner Tessman when he gets a little bit better. None of them can hold a fucking candle to Tyler Adams. They have other qualities. None of them have the intensity. None of them have the fight. And none of them have the team like he does.
I'm going to be honest. When you were talking, I was thinking of Pochettino's system. Tyler Adams may be, I mean, obviously outside of Pulisic, he might be right there with Pulisic as like 1B. The way he fits in Pochettino's system, that press is going to work like magic with Tyler Adams. He fits like perfectly into that.
Like a glove.
I actually thought I had the exact opposite thought because he has two deep lying guys. Yeah. I understand the counter press thing, but he's going to have a partner. So we used to play with just like a lone six, and I thought he was a lot more valuable there. Also, counterpoint, we might just never give up the ball again. So Potch in.
I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
In an ideal world. Yeah, right.
Give us your argument. Who's the most important, Nick? I think I may like this answer.
Listen, the reason we'll never give him the ball up again is because this guy's going to be at our 10. If you're talking about the most important player outside of Christian Pulisic, especially for a 2026 World Cup run, there's only one other person on this team that has the talent level of a Christian Pulisic, aka the talent level to be one of the best players in the world on his day. And that man is Gio Reyna. Now, obviously, he has had injury issues. Obviously, he's had playtime issues. Obviously, he's had some head-scratching career moves, as Pulisic did. But when this man is on, like, it is hard to tell who the better player is between him and Pulisic. Like, legit. The reason Pulisic is considered clear is because of his consistency in the last 2-3 years. But if you're talking just pure talent, he is every bit the player that Pulisic is, and just finds magic in big times. I think you can argue Dest can do that too, but again, just not as important a position and not as consistently leading to actual goals, actual contributions. And so I I I think that if I could choose one person, if you say Pulisic is locked in and you say one other person to be at their best for 2026, I don't know how you don't say Gio Reyna, because that is the man that can go from being us being a team that can do an upset to us being a team that has expectations. You have a fully firing Pulisic and Gio Reyna in the attack. All of a sudden, they're intertwining with each other. They're combining, and you can't just focus on one guy in the front three, front four. That is a dangerous thing, especially considering the freedom that Poch gives those front players. And again, the talent is just undeniable. It's why I'm never too concerned when he's back in camp after 3-4 months off. Like, it's just there all the time, and he's proven it consistently that even a long layoff won't hurt him as far as his levels. So Gio Reyna is my most important player outside of CP10, and if we're talking 1A, 1B, he'd be right there too.
Write in vote. I'm writing in. Oh, Jesus Christ. Writing in Kevin Sullivan. Let's go, baby. No, I completely agree with Gio Reyna. I didn't want to be accusing Gio Reyna and just throwing him as my number one. But everything you say, I 100% agree with, as that he could be the most important player. Him on his day is not at all a knock on Pulisic, but is potentially better than Pulisic. And that's with me saying Pulisic, I think, is a world-class winger and potentially the best player in Serie A before he got injured. So, I mean, Gio Reyna has an insane amount of talent. When he was playing for the US, had like a goal contribution of each of their last 7 goals at a certain point. He is certainly a difference maker, can slip in a player like a Balogun, like a Pepe, can slip in Weah. I mean, any of these people that have pace that make those runs in behind. Him and Pulisic both cooking together in combination play and slipping players in behind. I don't think the attack can get that much more deadly than having both those on the same page.
You heard it here first, boys. We're trying to slip it in behind.
We're trying to slip it in. But I think this bot is going a little off the rails. We've lost Mike. We're saying things that just aren't right. Why don't we close it out here, Nick? Give us your final thoughts on best players, anything you were thinking of here in terms of what you need to see out of players before March camp, before the World Cup.
Listen, my top 3 was Richards, Pepe, and Gio, and I think you can argue they're all question marks right now. So there is a lot of things that we need to see come to fruition. We don't have that much time, but these players, as well as a handful of others that we haven't mentioned, need to start showing up in big ways in order for us to feel confident going into the World Cup. Gio, baby.
Gio. Mike, final thoughts on U.S. men's national team players and who needs to really show up for the U.S. going forward here into the World Cup.
Final thoughts. All these dudes are important. Every fucking player needs to show up. It's not a one-man sport, obviously. We need complete buy-in. We need depth. We need 11 dudes who are ready to start, and we need 11 more ready to come off the bench. Player pool's fine. It's been good for a minute, but it's not where it should be. A lot of guys playing in Europe. A lot of guys who I have high expectations, high standards for, who don't meet them all the time. We're starting to see it more. This is probably the most excited I've been about the start of a European season for United States players. It's hard to get better than this, especially with Pulisic and McKennie doing their thing. Reyna starting to catch up as well. I just hope to see people stay healthy. Knock on wood. Bring back Balogun and Dest very, very soon. And get these guys running. This is going to be a huge spring, summer, going into the fall against Japan, as Flags had to tease. Good things. Good things. And God, we need to bring in some of these young guys soon, because the goalkeeper and the center backs, these dudes are not going to cut it come 2026.
Yeah, luckily there are reinforcements on the way. We do see our comments. We like what you guys are doing in their comment section, asking for a U.S. men's national team prospects rundown ranking. We will get that to you guys soon. Do not worry. All the people you need to know that are going to be on the come up, who could be the most important players next to Christian Pulisic in the coming years. There is a lot of talent We will get those ranked, get it out to you guys so you guys can digest, learn a little bit more about them, and keep an eye out for the future of the U.S. men's national team. But until next time, peace.
Charles, Mike Tracy.
Put it with the boys.
Segs with the boys. Podcasts.
Like, subscribe, subliminal messaging.